This is G. You're watching Allastrology, and this is the video for the week of May 18th and the following 7 days. A lot of planets are making a move, a lot of objects. This may be very, very much welcomed, like a release, a relief, a breath of fresh air, even kind of, sort of, added to Uranus energy. So we think of groups, we think of social systems, we think of bigger systems. And so in Gemini energy, it's the bigger system within the little system, or the little system and the big system, the micro and the macro in the micro type of thing, because it's that combination of Uranus and Gemini energy. Voting is definitely an Aquarian, Uranian type of energy. So when you see Uranus at 1, surprises, disruptions, things being very different, never been done before, right? Shocking even. And number 1 degree, your physical body, your ability to act, to take actions, the ability to, we think of the mind, the thought, to communicate. This would definitely be like mail-in ballot type of stuff. And the Gemini energy, which is, of course, the post office, the postal system, it's your local community. You see that? Uranus and Gemini. So disruptions within that. And I do know that we've already heard of some stuff that was happening. Freedom and our rights. That mind energy that is very busy, constantly doing this back and forth, chitter-chattering and talking, because here's Mercury really strong. It's in the sign, it's at home, it belongs here. And Mercury in the same sign that Uranus is in. So again, revelations would have likely occurred for some folks quite strongly, now that Mercury's already at 2. Communicating, talking with Neptune. Neptune is the bigger picture. Some confusing thoughts, but for some folks, it might be that connection to the details and the big picture of, oh, I see the end game and who it is that has something to gain. Ulterior motive type of stuff, deceptions, definitely also substances. So keep this in mind for anybody who has to take substances. Even if it's just like taking a sip of wine or drinking. Yeah, there could be some influences that come upon the mind a little bit stronger than usual when there's a direct connection between the mind and Mercury and the Neptune energy. And look what Saturn's at, the 11 degrees of breaking out of a routine and a rut. Going my own way, 11 degrees. It's in Aries, which is also the head, but it's also quite independent. And it says, I need to be a little bit more disciplined. Independent energy, rebellious energy here. Definitely protest energy and organizing, because that's what Saturn does. It organizes. Now, let's also be clear that Aries energy is physical bodies, but military bodies, soldier energy. The pioneer, taking off and doing something that no one's done before. And with that, we're going to go to Mars. Right at the beginning of the week, Mars is now no longer on Chiron, but it is still squaring that big, difficult, uncomfortable square for the cardinal energy. But this ends on this day, on the 18th. Mars will actually go into Taurus towards the end of the day. So now with Mars and Taurus, Mars will now be facing Pluto energy. It'll be Mars and Pluto squaring. This usually increases our energy. There might be a time for this week when Mars, especially at the end of the week, very end of the week, Mars will have to bow down to Pluto to some degree and take different orders. Be passionate and take action towards things that matter to it, things that are important. Values. There's probably a much bigger focus now on money, my income, how I receive. This will be big with Mars in Taurus. We may even become quite agitated and irritated when it comes to something or someone that we value. This is also strong desire energy because it's Taurus energy. And we think this magnetic ability that Taurus has to draw in and attract stuff, people, resources, food, a big one, especially with Ceres sitting here. Natural resources, the planet, farming is huge. Earth, earth energy. Mars would be an earth warrior at this point. Venus also makes a change. Venus leaves Gemini energy. You see, I've got her drawn in there at 29 in Gemini, but she's leaving. We have the North and the South node. They're going to make a move. This is moon energy. This is the public. So far, everything we've talked about, right? On the 18th, moon energy, the North node, our future, where we're headed, what we're focused on. This is the big picture. This is government. This is politics. This is, the whole political theater and the show must go on type of stuff. And the illusions and the delusions, my dreams about the future. Is it just a fantasy? This is all Pisces. It's prayer, beliefs, and faith. It is unconditional love. The opposite end of the North Node in Pisces, it's the Virgo who says, put your money where your mouth is. And what would that look like? Putting my money where my mouth is. Hello, Zoe. And of course, the kitty cat shows up, right? The node in Virgo. And what is Virgo other than kitty cats and pets, domestic energy, my home life, my everyday routines? So my work, my projects, my tasks. What do I do for a living? What is it that is involved in the everyday job, everyday routine of what my job is? And this is about service. Virgo takes care of things and people in real earth ways. Virgo is the taking the next correct step type of energy, like make it make sense type of energy. I'm the troubleshooter. I'm coming in to make something better than it was. And the Virgo energy has 1000% the capacity to do that. Service, and service in the little ways that make a big difference. Remember, Venus is now in Cancer energy. So the focus on home and family and country and mom. This can also be property and housing, by the way, but Venus now in the cardinal sign of Cancer, and it will be squaring Neptune energy. Squaring Neptune. So something from the administration. Neptune, this can be justice, judicial, Supreme Court type of stuff too, where it creates some stress and some tension. But this would be values, probably money. Gemini season starts on the 20th. That's when the sun enters into Gemini. So the beginning of this week, that means you've got like Monday and Tuesday, you've got a lot of items at critical degrees. Venus, Mars, the sun, all at like a critical degrees this week. And so that would be critical degrees of Aries, of Taurus, of Gemini. If you read any esoteric information, if you ever go over any of that, there's something interesting about the Aries, the Taurus, and the Gemini energy. Because when we begin a new year, it begins with the new moon in Aries, then a new moon in Taurus, then a new moon in Gemini. And what that does is it establishes, it sets up a structure, like an outline for the rest of the year, you see? And so super fascinating with the Aries energy, with the freedom and the rights, with some rights being taken away as far as votes, with talk about an active military presence and having to reinforce draft type of stuff, Aries energy. And then Taurus energy, what are our values with the sun there? What do we value? Who do we value? And then our thoughts and our thinking in Gemini. And who is my brother? And when people do go to war, we're told they're fighting for your freedoms, right? They're fighting to keep you safe in your bed at night. The reality is that the Gemini energy is a strong, uncomfortable square to Pisces energy. So this Mercury here at 2 degrees in Gemini will be in a very strong square with the North Node in Pisces, because this is government energy, the institution, the big system, the machine, you see? And so our micro communities, our neighborhood, the people that are important to us, right? The shops that we support locally, the schools, our libraries, the laundry person, the grocery store, the farmer's market, where we go out to eat when we want to have a nice dinner or some sort of a, celebration, right? Our local community. That all is squared basically by supporting this fantasy, right? This dream, this myth even, where the power is within the group thought, the group mentality. And when will the people understand that when they have the same thoughts, the same, when they hold those same thoughts, it's almost like a group prayer in a sense, a group meditation, a group focus, instead of being scattered. And that is what Gemini energy is powerful with. Distractions. The show must go on, the fantasy, the illusion, and being scattered. Gemini's flexible, which is a superpower for Gemini energy. Superpower of Mercury, a thirst for needing to communicate and share. But if we're focused on the duality, if we're hyper focused on this or that, which is also Gemini, we're this and we're that, and we accept that because that is part of being a human being. There's no, it doesn't, the whole yin, yang, black or white, no. The whole point of all those things, the yin and the yang, like that's to talk about the group and the whole. In essence, it's about the whole. It's telling you it's you are a combination of both. And that ultimately is what they talk about for Gemini energy and brotherhood, in the spirit of brotherhood. So that's a big deal. Okay. And we'll go into more details about that when it's time for the Gemini new moon. And with the sun going into Gemini, this will be an authority figure. And likely, very likely, as the sun goes through Gemini in the news and information, there will be more stuff about people who are in positions of power who may sound even more scattered than usual.